You're getting sleepy now. Before you close your eyes, let me tell you a story. An old story, older than the tallest mountains and older than the stars above. This is the tale of Middle-earth, a land filled with elves, dwarves, men, and creatures both beautiful and strange. A place where shadows once crept across green fields, and quiet heroes shaped the course of time. But tonight, there is no need to be afraid. The fires have gone out, the swords are resting. The white tree sways gently in the breeze. The halls of the elves are silent, and the lanterns of the dwarves burn low. Even the smallest hobbit holes are tucked in for the night. Our story does not begin with battle or magic. It begins with music. Before there were forests or rivers, before there was night or day, there was only a single voice. Then others joined it, and a great song filled the empty world. From that harmony, everything came to be. So take a deep breath. Let the world grow quiet. Let your thoughts drift through the mists of time, where memories are made of starlight and soft wind. Let go of today and sink into a time before time. This is the history of Middle-earth, a soft telling of a vast and ancient tale. A gentle walk through wonder, sorrow, and hope. Now rest. The story is beginning. Before there was land or sky, before even the sun or moon had form, there was only a great stillness. In that silence lived a presence, distant yet kind, called Iru. He is also known as Ilvatar, the One. From his thought came the Ainur, powerful spirits born of his imagination. They were many, each with their own strengths and gifts, and each carried a part of his deep purpose. Ilvatar gathered them and shared with them a melody. He asked them to sing. One by one, the Ainur began to weave their voices together. Some sang of light, some of water, some of wind and warmth. Together their music became rich and wide, echoing through the emptiness. This was the first beauty, the first movement of creation. But one among them, the mightiest of all, wished to shape the music to his own vision. His name was Melkor. He added themes not given to him, sounds that clashed and struggled. Discord entered the harmony, and tension grew. The song faltered. Ilvatar did not stop the music. Instead, he introduced new melodies, greater and more powerful than before, rising gently above the storm. The beauty deepened. Out of conflict came wonder. In this way, even Melkor's rebellion became part of something far greater. At last, Ilvatar brought the music to an end, and he showed the Ainur what they had created. A vision unfolded before them of mountains and oceans, stars and living beings, of joy and pain, courage and loss. They had shaped the story of a world. Some of the Ainur, moved by the vision, asked to enter it and bring it to life. Ilvatar granted their wish. Thus began the shaping of the world called Arda, and within it the land of Middle-earth. The greatest of these Ainur were called the Valar, and they would become the caretakers of the world. Others, lesser but still mighty, became the Maya. Together, they entered the vast space and began to prepare it for the children of Ilúvatar, who had not yet awakened. The world was dark and waiting, like a canvas after the sketch is drawn, but before the colors fill in. The music had passed, but its echoes remained, in wind and wave, in fire and stone. The song still lingered. The story of Middle-earth had begun. When the Ainur stepped into the world, it was still young and without form. The stars were not yet lit, the seas had no shore, and the land was only shadow and thought. Those who entered were led by the most powerful among them. These were the Valar, the shapers and stewards of the world. Each Valar had their own gift, a part of the great music they had sung. Manu, the lord of air and sky, was gentle and wise. He listened most closely to the thoughts of Ilúvatar. Beside him was Varda, Lady of the Stars, whose light would one day guide all wandering hearts. Ulmo ruled the waters. He needed no halls or cities, for he lived within every stream and sea. His music flowed through the veins of the world, and even when silent, his presence could be felt. Orla loved the bones of the earth. He shaped mountains, carved valleys, and taught stone how to sing under the weight of time. His hands built wonders, and his heart was full of craft and patience. Giovanna, the giver of fruits, brought life to the land. She called forests into being, and under her care the first green things stirred. Birds, beasts, and blossoms came to dance in her light. Others joined them. Oromu, the hunter, roamed the wild places. Nienna wept for the sorrows that had not yet come. Each Valar gave to the world something from their own spirit, and slowly Arda took shape. But not all worked in harmony. Melkor had also entered the world, and his heart remained full of pride and hunger. He wanted to rule, not serve. He destroyed what others built, melted the snows, burned the forests, and tore the mountains apart. Where light was placed, he brought shadow. The Valar struggled to undo his damage. Again and again they built and shaped, only to see Melkor unravel it. The world was scarred and uneven, full of beauty and ruin, side by side. Put to protect their work, the Valar created a land in the far west called Valinor, a place hidden from the chaos. There they made shining cities and peaceful halls, lit by the light of two great trees. These trees, one silver and one gold, gave light to the world before the sun and moon were made. And so the world was prepared. The sea rolled, the winds stirred, the stars twinkled far above. Yet the children of Ilúvatar had not yet come. The elves and men still slept in the thoughts of their maker. But the Valar waited, and the world waited with them, long after the shaping of the world had begun. Under the starlit skies and the quiet hush of forests yet untouched by time, the firstborn awoke. These were the Elves, the eldest of the children of Ilúvatar. They opened their eyes beside a silver lake beneath the stars, and the first thing they saw was the reflection of the night sky above. They were tall and fair, with voices like water and eyes that held the memory of starlight. They had no need of sleep, and their spirits were strong. They learned quickly and loved deeply. The world was still young, and they wandered its wild places in wonder, naming every tree, every stream, every hill. But Melkor saw their coming and feared it. He had heard whispers of the children, and he hated what he could not control. In secret, he sent out shadows. Strange shapes moved in the forests. Some elves vanished, never to be seen again. It was said that Melkor captured them and twisted them into dark reflections of what they once were. Thus came the first orcs, a cruel echo of elves, shaped by malice. The Valar, hearing of the elves' awakening, were filled with joy and concern. They decided to bring the elves to Valinor, to shelter them from Melkor's darkness. Oromu, the hunter of the Valar, was the first to find them. Though they feared him at first, his kindness won their trust. But not all elves chose to go. Some remained under the stars, becoming known as the Avari, the unwilling. Others began a long and difficult journey west, guided by the Valar's messengers. Those who followed the call became known as the Eldar, the people of the stars. Among them were three great kindreds, the Vonyar, the Noldor, and the Teleri. Their journey was long and filled with trials. Many were lost, and others chose to linger along the way. Those who reached Valinor saw the light of the two trees and dwelled in peace for a time. Yet seeds of sorrow were already beginning to grow. In the heart of the Noldor, a fire began to stir. Their longing for knowledge, for mastery, and for greatness would lead them down paths filled with both glory and grief. But for now, the elves sang beside the sea, bathed in starlight, far from the troubles to come. The world was still new. The night was still calm, and the story was only beginning. In the blessed land of Valinor, where the two trees shone with golden and silver light, the elves lived in peace. Among them, the Noldor became the most skilled in craft and knowledge. None were greater than Fëanor, son of Finwë, who possessed a spirit both brilliant and proud. Fëanor was a master of making, with hands of fire and vision unmatched. He created the Silmarils, 3 perfect jewels that captured the light of the two trees. No gem before or after would shine with such beauty. The Valar marveled at them, and even the other elves gazed in awe. But Fëanor guarded them fiercely and let no one touch them. Far beyond the walls of Valinor, Melkor watched. Once the mightiest of the Valar, he had turned to darkness long ago. After being imprisoned for his past destruction, he pretended to repent. The Valar allowed him to walk freely again. For a time, he wore a fair face, speaking gently, whispering lies. He sowed seeds of doubt among the Noldor, feeding their pride. He whispered that the Valar kept them in Valinor to control them, to prevent them from ruling Middle-earth as kings. Fëanor listened. His heart, already proud, grew bitter. Soon he quarreled with his kin, and even drew his sword against his own brother. At last, Melkor's lies were revealed, and he fled into the dark. But he was not done. In secret, he joined forces with a great spider creature named Ungoliant, whose hunger devoured all light. Together they returned to Valinor in shadow. There, in a single act act of ruin, they poisoned and destroyed the two trees. The world was thrown into darkness. While the Valar mourned, Melkor crept into Fëanor's home. He killed Finwë, Fëanor's father, and stole the Silmarils. The jewels burned his hands, for they were too pure for his evil touch. But he bore them away into the vast lands of Middle-earth. From that day forward, he became known as Morgoth, the black foe of the world. Fëanor, heartbroken and furious, cursed Morgoth with all his strength. He gathered his people and made a terrible vow. He and his sons swore that they would chase Morgoth to the ends of the world and reclaim the Silmarils, no matter the cost. This vow would bind them in shadow. It would tear apart families, spill blood, and lead to ruin. But in that moment, under the darkened skies, Fëanor's fire burned brighter than ever. The peaceful days of Valinor were over, and so began the long and sorrowful war for the Silmarils. Fëanor's anger was like fire without end. The loss of the Silmarils, the death of his father, and the ruin of the trees filled him with grief and rage. In his sorrow, he spoke words that could not be taken back. He gathered his 7 sons and swore a dreadful oath. They vowed that none would keep the Silmarils from them, whether Valar, elf, man, or creature of shadow. The oath was powerful and binding, like iron wrapped around their fates. Many who heard it were afraid, but the Noldor were stirred by Fëanor's passion and pride. He spoke of returning to Middle-earth, of reclaiming their freedom and honor, and many followed him. But the journey would not be noble or clean. The ships needed to cross the sea belonged to the Teleri, another elf kind who had chosen peace. When they refused to give the ships, Fëanor attacked. It was the first time elves raised arms against their own. Blood was spilled at the harbor of Alqualandu, and sorrow followed. The Valar, grieved by this betrayal, sent a messenger to warn the Noldor. Doom would follow them, they said, if they continued. But Fëanor would not turn back. Many did, afraid of what lay ahead. Others remained too proud or too loyal to abandon the path they had chosen. At last, Fëanor reached the northern shore with his followers. The crossing was harsh, the sea bitter and wide. In secret, Fëanor took the ships and left behind those who had doubted him, including his own brother Fingolfin. He burned the ships so none could follow, and the fire lit the sky with cruel light. Those left behind crossed on foot through the icy wastes. Their journey was long and cold, but still they came. Middle-earth lay before them, dark and broken, where Morgoth had fled and made his fortress in the north. Fëanor's war had begun, but the price had already been high. Kin had been slain, trust had been lost. The light of the two trees was gone, and the Silmarils rested in the iron crown of a dark lord. Though brave and full of fire, Fëanor would not see the end of the tale. He rushed into battle with fury, struck down great enemies, but was mortally wounded. As he lay dying, he looked to the sky and knew he could not defeat Morgoth alone. Yet even in death, he clung to the vow. His sons carried it on, their hearts heavy with pride and grief. The oath would haunt them, binding their lives to a fate they could not escape. And the long war against Morgoth would grow darker with each passing year. The Silmarils burned in the north, and the world held its breath. Though war and sorrow spread across Middle-earth, not all hope was lost. In the deep forests of Doriath, a hidden kingdom protected by enchantments, lived a princess named Elthine. She was the daughter of King Thingol and the mayor Lúthien. Her beauty was beyond compare, and her voice could calm even the wildest heart. One day, a man named Beren wandered into those woods. He was weary, hunted, and alone. But when he saw Lúthien dancing beneath the trees, he was struck silent. It was said he loved her from the moment he saw her. Lúthien, in time, came to love him as well. Their love was not welcomed. Thingol, proud and protective, did not wish for his daughter to wed a mortal. To drive Beren away, he set an impossible task: steal a Silmaril from the iron crown of Morgoth. None had dared approach Morgoth's throne, let alone take from it. But Beren did not turn away. For love of Lúthien, he set out into the dark lands. Lúthien would not let him go alone. Against her father's will, she escaped her kingdom and joined him. Together they did what no army had done. With the help of friends both brave and stranger, Talking Hound named Huan and the Cursed Wolf, Carchroth they passed into Morgoth's fortress in disguise. Lúthien, using her enchanted song, cast Morgoth into sleep. Beren cut a Silmaril from his crown, but they were discovered while escaping. In the battle that followed, the Silmaril was swallowed by the great wolf Carchroth, and Beren was mortally wounded. Lúthien wept over his body. Her love was so pure that when she died of grief, her spirit passed into the halls beyond the world. There she sang before the powers who govern fate. For the first and only time, death was reversed. Moved by her song, the Valar allowed Lúthien and Beren to return to life, not as elf and man, but as to mortal beings who would live and die together. Their tale passed into legend. They chose a quiet life and faded from the eyes of the world, but their courage stirred others. Among those was Finrod Felagund, a noble elf lord who had aided Beren. Finrod ruled Nargothrond, a hidden city carved into stone, but his kindness to men drew the attention of Morgoth's servant, Sauron. In a later journey with Beren, Finrod was captured and gave his life to save him. After his death, Nargothrond was ruled by others, and in time it fell into pride. A dragon named Glorung came to its gates, spreading fire and lies. Nargothrond was lost, its halls darkened, and the river that once flowed beside it turned silent. But the tale of Beren and Elthine lived on, a light in the shadow. The first Silmaril was taken from Morgoth, not by armies or kings, but by two lovers who dared to face the dark together. And in their love, the world was changed. In the days of sorrow that followed, there lived a boy named Trin, son of Hryn, a mighty warrior who had defied Morgoth. Because of that defiance, Morgoth captured Hryn and cursed his family, vowing that wherever his children went, pain would follow. Trin was sent away from his home to be safe, raised in the hidden kingdom of Doriath. There he grew tall and proud, skilled in battle and speech. King Thingol welcomed him, and for a time Trin found peace, but trouble clung to him like a shadow. After an accident that led to the death of a friend, Trin fled the court in shame before his name could be cleared. He took to the wild, becoming a wanderer and a warrior, known by many names. Some called him the Black Sword. He fought bravely against the servants of Morgoth, even leading men and elves in battle. But wherever Trin went, misfortune followed. Trust turned to betrayal. Friendship turned to ruin. Cities that welcomed him fell into silence. He believed he could change his fate by strength alone, but the curse twisted all he touched. In time, Trin came to Nargothrond, the once great city carved into stone. He urged its people to fight openly, to build a great bridge and face the enemy head-on. But his pride was strong, and wisdom was lost. When the dragon Glórin came, the bridge became a path to ruin. Nargothrond was destroyed, its people scattered. Trin fought the dragon, but was cast under its spell. Glórin did not kill him, but instead poisoned his mind with lies. He wandered again, lost and broken, until he found a young woman named Ainur. Neither knew the truth. She was his sister, hidden and raised far away. Under the shadow of the dragon's spell, they did not remember their past. They grew close and married, believing they had found peace. But dragons deal in cruelty. Glórin revealed the truth, and when Ainur learned who Trin truly was, she fled in grief and threw herself into the river. Trin, shattered by the loss, ended his own life with his sword. His grave was marked with only one name, Turambar, the Master of Doom. He had tried to master his fate, but the curse had claimed him. Yet even in that dark tale, there was meaning. Hin Eslein had fought with all their strength. They had loved, suffered, and stood against Morgoth's will. Their pain would echo through the years, but so too would their defiance. And the war against the Shadow was not yet over. For many years, Middle-earth was filled with sorrow. Morgoth ruled from the north, his fortress Angband buried deep beneath the mountains. From there he sent dragons, balrogs, and countless armies to crush all light. The elves and men fought bravely, but they could not break his power alone. At last, one voice rose in the silence. Eärendil, a mariner of both elven and human blood, took up the call. He had married Elwing, the granddaughter of Beren and Lúthien. She carried a Silmaril, the jewel her family had reclaimed with love and sacrifice. When all seemed lost, Elwing cast herself into the sea to save it. The ocean did not take her, but carried her to Eärendil. With the Silmaril bound to his brow, Eärendil sailed west into the forbidden seas. No mortal had ever reached Valinor by their own will, but he came not for himself. He came to plead for mercy, for the children of elves and men, for the world that still held beauty under its pain. The Valar listened. They rose at last in wrath, not for vengeance, but for justice. A mighty host crossed the sea, led by the angelic beings who had once shaped the world. The sky grew bright with power, and the seas boiled with storm. Thus began the War of Wrath. It was a war like no other. Mountains were broken, Rivers changed course, and fire lit the skies. Dragons filled the air, led by the winged beast, and Calagon, blacker than night. But even the dragons could not stop the host of the west. Calagon fell, crashing into the mountains and shattering them. The fortress of Angband was broken. Morgoth was cast down, bound in chains forged by the Valar, and taken beyond the world into the timeless void. His crown was beaten into a collar, his strength stripped away. The war had ended, but the cost was great. Much of the western land sank beneath the sea. The Elves who had defied the Valar were forgiven, though not all chose to return to the Blessed Realm. Some remained behind, tied forever to the fate. The Silmarils were lost again. One was taken into the sky with Irindil's ship, where he now sails as a star of hope. The other two were taken by Fëanor's last surviving sons, but they could not bear the weight of their oath. One threw himself into fire, the other into the sea. The jewels, once so prized, were scattered beyond reach. Morgoth was gone. Peace, at last, seemed possible. But in the shadows of his defeat, a servant remained. Sauron, once the lieutenant of Morgoth, had escaped justice. He waited, patient and cunning, and the world was not yet free. A new age was beginning. With Morgoth defeated, the world entered a time of healing. The Valar wished to reward the race of men who had stood bravely in the long war. To them, they gave a gift, a land of peace and plenty, set apart from Middle-earth, but not as far as the Blessed Realm. This land was called Númenor. It rose from the sea like a crown of green and gold. Its hills were gentle, its waters clear. The men who lived there, known as the Dunedain, were given long life, wisdom, and strength. They built tall towers and sailed great ships. Their knowledge grew, their cities flourished, and for many years they lived in harmony with the world. At first, they honored the Valar and remembered the Elves who had helped them. They welcomed visitors from Middle-earth, teaching and protecting the lands of the lesser men. But slowly, their hearts began to change. They watched the Elves sail west to lands they could not reach. They remembered that their lives, though long, would still end, and they began to fear death. That fear grew into bitterness. Sauron, still hiding in the shadows, saw this weakness. Taking a fair form, he came to Númenor, pretending to offer wisdom and power. The king, at the time, Eärferison, was proud and greedy. He welcomed Sauron, listened to his words, and was soon under his sway. Sauron whispered lies about the Valar and promised the secret of eternal life. Temples were built, and dark rites were practiced. The light of Númenor began to fade. Those who resisted were silenced. The sea grew restless. In his pride, Arthurion built a vast fleet to challenge the Valar directly. He set sail for the west, hoping to take immortality by force. But no mortal may set foot in the Blessed Realm unbidden. As his ships neared the shores of Valinor, Ilúvatar himself intervened. The sea roared, and the world changed. Númenor was swallowed by the ocean. Its proud towers were lost beneath the waves. The land was broken and reshaped. From that day on, The world was bent into a circle, and only the elves could still find the straight path to the west. A few escaped the doom. Led by Elendil and his sons, the faithful sailed east and landed in Middle-earth. There they founded two great kingdoms, Arda in the north and Gondor in the south. They carried with them the memory of Númenor, the wisdom of their people, and the hope of beginning anew. But Sauron did not perish in the fall. His body was destroyed, but his spirit fled. He returned to Middle-earth, vowing revenge, and soon he would forge a weapon of terrible power. In the quiet years after Númenor's fall, Sauron returned to Middle-earth. His body had been lost, but his spirit endured. He no longer wore a fair face. Instead, he cloaked himself in shadow and fear. Yet his desire remained the same, to rule all life. He chose a land in the east and built a stronghold called Mordor. There he raised the Dark Tower of Barada, black and tall, its foundations rooted in malice. From this place he began to weave his plans in secret, to deceive the free peoples. Sauron took on a fair and wise appearance once more. He traveled to the land of the Elves and called himself Annatar, the Lord of Gifts. He spoke of peace and knowledge, of healing and strength. Many were cautious, but some listened. In the realm of a region, the elven smiths were eager to learn. Led by a craftsman named Celebrimbor, they worked with Annatar and forged many rings of power. Rings that could strengthen kingdoms, preserve beauty, and grant great wisdom. But Sauron had not shared all his plans. In the fires of Mount Doom, hidden from all others, he forged a master ring, the One Ring. Into it, he poured his will, his power, and a piece of his very soul. It would rule all the others. Through it, he could see their thoughts and control their bearer. The moment he placed the ring on his finger, the elves felt the trap. They hid their three most powerful rings, Vilya, Nenya, and Nariand, refused to use them while Sauron held the one. But Sauron had already given rings to others. 9 were gifted to kings of men. These rulers fell under his spell and became the Nazgul, the Ringwraiths. Neither living nor dead, they rode in darkness, bound to Sauron's will forever. 7 rings were given to the dwarves. These did not bend them to evil, but stirred greed in their hearts and brought ruin to their halls. The dwarves could not be dominated, but their kingdoms were still broken by dragons and war. War rose once more across the land. The elves fought back. The men of Númenorian blood, led by Elendil and his sons, joined them. Together they formed the last alliance and marched against Mordor. In a great battle, they laid siege to Beren. After 7 years, Sauron came forth. He struck down Elendil and the elven king, Gil-galad. But in the end, his body was cast down, and the ring was cut from his hand by Isildur, Elendil's son. Without the ring, Sauron vanished. His spirit fled once more, but the war was won. The Dark Tower fell. Peace returned. Yet Isildur did not destroy the ring. He kept it, claiming it as a prize, and the ring, still full of evil, waited silently. Its story was not over. It was only beginning. The battle had ended. The last alliance of elves and men stood victorious upon the blackened plains of Mordor. For Arda, the Dark Tower, had crumbled. Sauron's body was gone, and his armies scattered. But the victory was not complete. The One Ring, the source of Sauron's power, had not been destroyed. Isildur, son of Elendil, held the ring. He had taken it from the hand of Sauron after the final blow. Though Elrond and others urged him to cast it into the fires of Mount Doom, he refused. He believed it a reward, a symbol of his triumph, and he called it precious. But the ring was not simply treasure. It was a living thing, filled with Sauron's will. It whispered to its bearer, clouded judgment, and waited for a time to return to its master. Isildur left Mordor, taking the ring with him. As he journeyed north, he was ambushed by a group of orcs. His guards were slain, and he tried to escape by slipping on the ring and vanishing. But the ring betrayed him. It slid from his finger as he swam across a river, and in that moment he was seen and struck down by arrows. The ring sank into the water and was lost. For over 2,000 years, it remained hidden beneath the current, untouched and forgotten. Sauron's power was broken, but not ended. His spirit lingered, shapeless and silent, growing slowly in strength. In time, the ring was found by a strange creature named Smeagol. He came upon it by chance, and was quickly consumed by its charm. He took it as his own, and called it my precious. Under its influence, he became Gollum, hiding deep beneath the misty mountains. There he lived in darkness, the ring keeping him alive far beyond the years of mortal men. The world changed. Kingdoms rose and fell. The elves faded. The dwarves withdrew, and men forgot much that once was. But the ring endured, and then, one day, it slipped from Gollum's hand. It landed in the path of a small creature, quiet and kind, with no great power and no desire for war. His name was Bilbo Baggins, and with that chance meeting, the wheels of fate began to turn again. Years passed quietly in the Shire, a gentle land of hills and gardens, where hobbits lived simple lives, far from the ruins of great kingdoms and the echoes of old wars. They farmed, feasted, and rarely thought of the world beyond their borders. Bilbo Baggins was not like most hobbits. After finding the ring beneath the mountains, he had an adventure filled with dragons, treasure, and riddles. He returned home, older, wiser, and a little stranger than before. The ring, though small and plain, he kept tucked in his pocket. It made him invisible when he wore it, and he used it now and then for mischief, but it also made him restless. He did not age like other hobbits. He felt stretched, like butter scraped across too much bread. He did not know the ring's true nature. No one did, not even the wise. But beyond the Shire, in darker places, something had begun to stir. Whispers passed through forests. Shadows lengthened. Strange creatures moved by night. In the old fortress of Dol Guldur, in the southern forest, a dark power was growing. At first, the wise thought it was only a lesser evil, a shadow without name. But they were wrong. It was Sauron, returned in secret. He gathered his strength slowly, drawing dark things to him, wraiths, beasts, and men who longed for power. He no longer needed the ring to act, but without it, he was not whole. He searched for it, hoping to draw it back to him. The ring, sensing its master, also began to stir. Gollum, driven by hunger and memory, crept out of the mountains to search for it. He was captured and questioned. From his broken words, the name of the Shire was learned. Sauron now knew where to look. Back in the Shire, Bilbo celebrated his 111st birthday. At the end of the party, he vanished, using the ring one last time, and left it behind. His heir, a young hobbit named Frodo, inherited it. For years, Frodo kept the ring safely hidden, unaware of what it truly was. But the peace could not last. Gandalf, the wandering wizard, began to uncover the truth. He read ancient scrolls and studied signs long forgotten. When at last he tested the ring, the fire revealed its secret. The One Ring had been found. Sauron knew it now. His eye turned east to west, and the search began in earnest. The quiet years were over, and a new journey was about to begin, one that would decide the fate of all. The world had grown quieter, but not safer. The One Ring had returned to the land of the living, and Sauron's eye now searched for it without rest. Though hidden in the green hills of the Shire, the ring could not remain there forever. Gandalf, knowing the danger, urged Frodo to leave. With only a few close friends, Sam, Merry, and Pippin, Frodo slipped away. Their journey began in secret, but danger followed quickly. Black riders, the Nazgul, hunted them, drawn by the power of the ring. The hobbits reached the town of Bree and met a mysterious ranger named Strider. His true name was Aragorn, heir to the lost throne of Gondor. With his help, they reached Rivendell, where the Elves still kept wisdom and strength. There, a great council was called. Elves, dwarves, men, and a single wizard gathered. It was decided the ring could not be used, nor hidden it must be destroyed in the fires where it was made. And so, a small group was formed, the Fellowship of the Ring. 9 companions set out: Frodo, Sam, Merry, Pippin, Aragorn, Gandalf, Legolas the elf, Gimli the dwarf, and Boromir of Gondor. Together they traveled through mountains and forests, across rivers and snow. But the ring worked quietly, tempting minds, testing hearts. In the dark halls of Moria, they faced terrible danger. There, Gandalf fought a creature of fire, and Shadower Balrog and fell into the depths. The Fellowship grieved but pressed on. At last, they reached the woods of Lothlorien, where Galadriel, Lady of Light, offered them rest and guidance. But the Fellowship would not stay together. Boromir, tempted by the ring, tried to take it. Frodo fled. Sam followed. The others were scattered, some captured, some hunted. Boromir fell, defending Merry and Pippin. Aragorn, Legolas, and Gimli gave chase, while Frodo and Sam turned east, alone, toward Mordor. They were not truly alone. Gollum, who had followed them in secret, was caught. Frodo, showing pity, spared him. Gollum became their guide, leading them through dark lands, though his heart was torn between loyalty and desire. Battles broke across the land. Sauron's armies marched. Rohan and Gondor stood against the tide. Aragorn revealed his true name and claimed his place as king. Gandalf returned, now stronger than before. In the end, Frodo and Sam reached Mount Doom. But the ring's power had grown too strong. Frodo could not let it go. It was Gollum who took it, biting it from Frodo's hand, and his madness, he fell into the fire. The ring was destroyed. Sauron's power crumbled. The Dark Tower fell. The sky cleared, bare and peace, for a time, returned to Middle-earth. With the ring destroyed and Sauron's shadow swept away, the world drew its first quiet breath in many years. The Dark Tower of Barad-dûr was gone. The Nazgul had vanished with the fire. His armies scattered, leaderless and afraid. In Gondor, the White Tree still stood, silent and bare. The city had suffered, but it had not fallen. The people looked to the east and waited, and from the fields of battle came their king. Aragorn, once a ranger of the wild, now walked openly as Elizur, the heir of Isildur. He brought healing to the wounded and hope to the fearful. The city was crowned with light and song as he entered its gates. And there, beneath the sky of a new age, he was crowned King of Gondor. Beside him stood Arwen, daughter of Elrond. She had chosen a mortal life to remain with him. Their union marked the joining of elves and men, and a new chapter of peace. But others, too, had played their part. Frodo and Sam returned from Mount Doom as quiet heroes. Their strength had not come from swords or crowns, but from endurance, courage, and friendship. They were honored in Minas Tirith, though Frodo's wounds were deep, not only of the body, but of the heart. Merry and Pippin, once small and unnoticed, had grown tall in the service of Rohan and Gondor. Their laughter returned slowly, but it never fully left. The hobbits returned home, but the Shire had changed. Though untouched by war, trouble had crept in. Led by Saruman, now fallen and bitter, a group of men had seized control. But the hobbits stood up. They defended their land and took it back. It was their own small battle, and they won it with bravery and unity. Yet, for Frodo, peace did not come easily. The ring had left a mark on him, deep and lingering. In time, he chose to leave Middle-earth, along with Bilbo, Gandalf, and the last of the elves. He boarded a white ship and sailed west to the Undying Lands, where rest and healing awaited. Sam returned to the Shire. He married, raised a family, and became mayor. He planted trees, shared stories, and lived a long, full life. But in his heart, he always remembered the journey, the mountain, and the friend who had carried him through fire and ash. The War of the Ring was over. Sauron was gone. The world had changed, and the time of men had truly begun. With the fall of Sauron and the crowning of Aragorn, the Third Age came to an end. A new chapter opened in Middle-earth, called the Fourth Age. It was a time for healing, rebuilding, and quiet change. The great kingdoms of men flourished. Aragorn ruled with wisdom and strength, bringing peace to the lands once darkened by war. Under his reign, Gondor and Arnor were united. Old roads were cleared, white banners flew from tall towers, and songs once lost were sung again. But not all remained. The elves, who had long protected the world from behind veils of starlight and song, knew their time had passed. The magic of Middle-earth was fading like the last notes of a song. Their ships waited at the grey havens, white sails ready to catch the western wind. Many had already sailed Galadriel, Elrond, and the keepers of the Three Rings passed over the sea, leaving behind the fading lands of forest and moonlight. They carried with them the memory of ancient days, of light before the sun, of stars before the sky. The dwarves, too, began to vanish from the pages of history. They returned to their deep halls, their mines of silver and stone. Some say they built new cities in the east. Others believe they slowly dwindled, holding fast to the quiet echo of the mountains. The hobbits remained in the Shire, small and steady, untouched by the great affairs of the world. But even they began to change. The world grew louder, roads grew longer, and travelers more frequent. Still, the fields remained green. The ale flowed freely, and stories were passed down by fireside. In time, Samwise Gamgee, the last of the ring-bearers, crossed the sea to follow Frodo. He left behind a book, the Red Book of Westmark, filled with tales of adventure, friendship, and courage. From it, others would remember what was, and learn what mattered most. Middle-earth grew quieter. The elves became legends. The great battles faded into story. But in every corner of the land, something gentle remained. A tree planted with care, a star shining over a calm sea, a tale told beneath the moon. The age of wonder had passed, but the memory of it lived on. Thank you for listening. The story of Middle-earth is long and full of sorrow, but also full of light. It is a tale of songs and swords, of kings and quiet hearts, of choices made in darkness that shaped the dawn. And though the ages have passed and the elves have gone, the memory remains. Tonight you've walked through time, through starlit forests, broken towers, golden cities, and quiet green hills. You've heard the music of the Ainur, the cries of war, the whispers of the ring, and the footsteps of hobbits on soft earth. Let those echoes stay with you. As you drift into sleep, may you carry a bit of that wonder with you. Let it rest gently in your thoughts, like starlight caught in a still lake. The world may seem quieter now, but stories like this never truly end. They wait in pages, in dreams, and in hearts that still believe in courage, kindness, and hope. If you enjoyed this gentle retelling, consider leaving a like or sharing it with someone who needs a moment of calm. You're always welcome here, where stories stretch far and time moves slowly. Good night, and may the stars shine on the path before you.